Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Football RPG. I'm Mike, that's Evan, and today we are talking about our top 10 wide receiver prospects in the 2025 NFL Draft. Evan, I'm excited to talk about this because we did it way back when, before we even knew who was declaring and who wasn't, and boy, oh boy, did we need to do our homework. But now we've studied.
Speak for yourself, Mike.
Oh, all right. Pull the list. But let's jump right into it. Let's start at 10, work our way back up to 1. I think we have the same one, but there might be some fun flips in there. So would you like to do 10 through 6 first?
Sure. So 10 for me is going to be Jack Bech. Okay. Started as a tight end originally before transferring over schools and then transferring positions to wide receiver. He's that true outside wide receiver. Also can play in the slot because, well, he used to be a tight end. So he knows how to split out off the line right there, which really appreciate that. Let's see, going to 9, Jalen Knoll. Going to 8, Jalen Royals. I still really like Royals. I know you're not as high on him, but You're talking about a guy who only played 7 games this past year. Clearly was an outside wide receiver, came in above 200 pounds in those 7 games, had over 800 yards. I mean, sure, you make an argument. He played at Utah State, but you have a guy that was production, played multiple seasons. Really appreciate all of those aspects that he brings to his game. 7, LKO Manor. Stanford, look, if anybody is going to talk about him and try and hype him up, they're going to tell you to go look at him against Travis Hunter, blah, blah, blah. All right. He's a Stanford wide receiver. He is very mid. There is a clear gap between the wide receivers that are above him inside the top 5 and his counterpart here in Trey Harris, who Trey Harris was an analytical darling with his incredible yards per out run this past season, even playing in a less than full schedule. I think he only played 8 games in the regular season. So also something to remember there. But yeah, that's going to be a top 6 or going to number 6 for me, leaving the top 5 still to be discussed. Mike, is there anything you want to highlight about your guys going 10 to 6?
I will say, so Bech just missed mine. He's at 11, but I think we have almost the exact same players in this tier. I think I might bump Bech up because the more that I look into him, watching 2021 LSU, he did better than Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas did. So that should say something. There's a lot to like about his game. The stink of the TCU offense makes me sad every time I watch it. I'll get into specific players here. So at 10, I have Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. I think it's very likely that he goes day 2. I think it's very likely that a team commits to him as their ex-receiver. He may not be the actual wide receiver 1 for the team, but he will play in the role on the outside where he's out there for every snap. We could see like 2023 Michael Wilson from him, where he's on the field all the time and you love to see him, but like doesn't get the ball. 9, I have Jalen Royals. You said that I'm lower on him. I think I am lower on him. I think I'm lower on this wide receiver class in general. I think there's a real lack of excitement once I hit wide receiver 8. So I'm a little worried there. So 8, last guy that I'm like, this could work. It's Jalen Knoll. We just did a prospect profile on him. Look, he's explosive. He's twitchy. He can separate well. He checks a lot of the boxes to be a PPR target at the next level. And I think that the combine opened a lot of eyes. And listen, Matt Hicks from the Rookie Big Board was really big on him. I went back, I rewatched him. I was too low, and I'm excited to see where he goes. 7, I have Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. I just like watching him play. Big, fast, separates. His double moves are disgusting, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. Sometimes he doesn't fully commit to the stop, and then the corner just kind of stares at him like, what are you doing, dog? And then other times he leaves him in the dust and ends up with a long touchdown. And at 6, I have Alec Ayo Manor. You said go watch the Colorado game. I challenge you to this. Go watch the Washington game. Go watch the Oregon State game. Go watch the Notre Dame game. Go watch the TCU game. Go watch the Wake Forest, North Carolina State, San Jose State. Those ones, like, I get why you don't like that. But there are times where he steps on the field and he looks like the best player on the field. There are times where he steps on the field and just completely disappears. So I don't know which one is the real him, but he checks a lot of boxes saying that he can do a lot of things at an elite level. I will bet on that. Plus his run blocking ability will get him a big role to start his NFL career. So any beef with those rankings?
No, honestly, I'm shocked that Higgins, with how much you dunk on him, is even in your top 10.
Who else am I going to put there? Isaiah Bond, Juice Wells, Tiny Tez Johnson. Like, I have, for a quick comparison, I have over 23 running backs in the top 48. I have 13 wide receivers. Take the running back.
When in doubt, take the running back.
I almost have as many tight ends as I have wide receivers in this class, which maybe I'm just too low. Maybe I'm a hater. But all right, let's get through our 5 through 1. You can lead us off again. I think we're going to have a couple of differences, 2 to 4.
Okay. Matthew Golden at 5. He's been the absolute darling riser through the entire process here. Travis Hunter at 4. This is with the assumption that he's not going to be more than a 40% offensive snap share type of player. Obviously, if he does get drafted and listed as a wide receiver, this is a completely different ball game. At that point, he is pushing for number 1 in the class if they're saying that he's going to get 80% offensive snaps. But at the current estimation with him going corner instead of wide receiver, 4 is where I have him ranked. He's immensely talented. I think everybody knows that at this point. He can track the ball. He is fantastic going after it. He is an athlete that is just playing the position the way that he can. 3, I have Luther Burden. Down season for Luther. A lot of people look down on that. It was because of Brady Cook. Like, don't get this messed up. Don't overthink this. He is still a top 4, top 3 wide receiver in this class, but Emeka Egbuka is a much more secure asset. Mike, we were having this conversation before the show here. Burden, Egbuka, Hunter, Golden are all kind of going right about the same spot in most mock drafts right now. So it'll be really interesting to see how our mock draft plays out. You're seeing a lot of them in the very tail end of the first round, along with leaking into the second round, maybe in that like 10 to 14, 10 to 15 type of range. So if you're looking for a wide receiver in this year's class, hopefully you made a deep playoff run.
Yep.
And you have that late pick. And then the number 1 has been number 1 for a very long time already. Tetairoa McMillan, an absolute stud on the outside. He was everything for this Arizona offense. He knows what it's like to have an entire team lean on you. When you have a bad game, the entire team, the entire offense has a bad game. Love seeing that from my number 1 wide receiver in the class.
Yep. Spoiler alert, I have Ted at number 1 too. Head over to Last Four on Sports. I just did a scouting report on him. Listen, good at football, big, fluid. I won't say he's particularly fast or explosive, but he's explosive enough for his size, fast enough for his size. Anyone that is faster than him can't match how big he is. Anybody that's big enough can't match how fluid he is. It's going to leave a lot of defensive coordinators up at night. So back, I have the same number 5. It's just 2 through 4 that we have a little bit different. So Matthew Golden, red flags go off a little bit when somebody magically declares and doesn't have a very strong profile, but they get steamed into first round buzz. I think he declared because he's going to go in the first round, and the combine all but solidified that for me. I just wonder how long the transition period is going to be for him at the NFL, and maybe a team takes him just so he can take the top off of a defense rather than score fantasy points, which is what we would like to see. Wide receiver 4, I have Emeka Egbuka. I have him in lockstep with Travis Hunter, and my whole argument here, if you need a contributor, you need a player that you know is going to hit, Egbuka. If you want to shoot the moon, take Travis Hunter. So CBS Sports interviewed the top 4 teams in the draft. The Titans see him as a corner that could play a little receiver. The Browns see him as a receiver. They could play a little corner. The Patriots see a world where he can play both. Where he goes and the reports that are coming out of there could affect where he goes in your rookie drafts. The way that I look at this, wherever he ends up going, he's going to be such a supreme athlete and contributor. I don't know how you take him off the field if he wants to do that. It's one thing when a guy isn't really interested. Travis Hunter wants to change football. And I don't see how a coach wouldn't let him if he is that good at both positions, and I think that he is. So maybe buy the dip after week 4 when he doesn't play that many snaps. And wide receiver 2, Luther Burden, throwing 2024 out the window. Brady Cook, congrats on being on the Combine Risers list. I just wish you were better when we were actually playing football. The offense looked a little gadgety. The usage looked a little weird. Luther Burden, explosive, strong, physical, little baby hands. Doesn't matter. He catches the ball all the time. I have a thing for players like that because there's a world where he turns into that wide receiver 1 for fantasy that can really solidify your offense. I will say that there's a little more risk associated with Burden because of his usage this past year and how teams may view him. Some have him sliding out of the first round in mock drafts right now, which would cause him to plummet in our dynasty drafts. But any thoughts on my top 5?
No, Mike, I think it's quite invigorating to remember that Luther Burden was one of the top guys talked about going into this past season. The down season has people souring on him a little bit. I think it's a little bit of souring combined with prospect fatigue. We've been talking about Burden for so long at this point that people have just heard the name and then they were disappointed this season.
Yep. Do you want to shout out anyone outside of our top 10s that you think could be a surprise day 2 pick and then shoot up our dynasty boards?
Oh man, I can't even, Mike. We've said this so many times.
Is it Restrepo?
This is the running back class. This is the tight end class. It's definitely not a quarterback class. And man, wide receivers, it just isn't super. It's not super inspiring, Mike. Yeah, I don't know if there's anybody that I want to shout out because I don't feel strongly about many of these wide receivers.
That is completely fair. I will say Xavier Restrepo and Ty Felton are the only other 2 receivers I have in my top 48 pre-draft dynasty rankings. If you like this episode, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to catch you next time. Bye-bye. Have a night, love.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG Podcast. If you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to check out written content, head over to lastwordonsports.com.
Don't let the Goblins get you.